All right. Hey, everybody. Hello. We'll go ahead and get jumping so everybody can get back to their items. So I appreciate y'all sticking around for this. Small group will be relatively informal. Some of the things we covered in broad details in the earlier presentation, but I really think what this will allow us to do is just kind of go a little bit more detail into the funding that we're projecting available, a couple little tweaks with the way we're asking you to submit things and allow you to ask questions about the forms really more than anything here. So we'll just quickly go forward. Again, review the project call. We'll go into more details there with the funding form. I think we're pretty good on project policies, review and discussion. If there's anything that you kind of popped up after you thought about, we can walk through those real quick. I've got some reminders on what we'd like to see on programming, and then just an opportunity for you guys to ask questions about anything that comes up, really. So we walk through the schedule here. I'm quite proud of myself that I actually have the correct year and date on this slide, so I got that going for me. The rest of that, basically all the same, targeting through the similar schedule that we'll do, looking for a draft tip back to Tech Committee and Executive Board in June, typically September sometime, or October is our adoption. And then again, remember that the new money that would be programmed becomes available. Generally, what we're seeing is just after the first of the year, so January 2026, 1 year from now would be when the new project programming and TIP would be active, and this current one is no longer active. That is just intersecting lines of when they came across. So it is a little unusual in the way they kind of lined out this time, and it is slightly different, but it's just the way the calendar lined up this time. So this is the typical time that we have this project call and kind of works out for this, is generally January when we launch it. If there's a significant request, if there would be desire to look at longer timelines for that and a broader conversation, we can certainly consider that for next time. Of course, that's 3 years from now, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say the TIP is updated every 3 years, mobility plan's 4 years, so they're never aligning perfect. Yeah. Well, there's been worse issues than this, it's comes up every time.
Yep. So again, project call, we'll send something out on Friday, potentially even before, but probably Friday is when I'll get that out. Applications due then, so it's open for, I think that's 6 weeks, if not, yeah. And then project call numbers that we talked about earlier, 126 million on STBG, and this is the total revenue. We'll get to more details on what I project as available revenue momentarily. The main thing that we would see different is we are asking for you guys to submit CMAQ projects, whether that's overruns on current projects or potential new projects going forward. We do not have direct programming authority granted in writing from TDOT for fiscal year 26 and out, but we would be having a conversation with them about that and hopefully would be able to, in fact, program projects for those out years. Yes, sir.
You do want that you're not talking about.
Yes, we do.
New CMAQ projects and uncertainty of federal funding. You want them regardless.
Yes, 100%. Because
we were kind of on again, off again. We're back on again.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time to, again, this is kind of a delegated authority that they have given us. It is a little bit contingent on what's going on with any other potential areas, PM 2.5 areas that could pop up in the state. Those things are a little different. So I'm not projecting a revenue a dollar figure at this point. That's a conversation that we'll have to have, but.
Doesn't mean there won't be one, you're just not going to see a number on it.
Correct. I don't want to get out over my skis there when it's not technically my authority to say we can do X. So.
Identify the needs and then let the funding fall.
That will be a consultation, correct. And then I guess on that, they would like us to obligate those funds when they are available in a fiscal year. They want us to obligate those down to zero each year. So that's a little different. There's not really, they don't encourage rollover funds in any significant fashion within the CMAQ program. So that's another challenge that we'll have to work with. We don't need to get into too much of those details, but suffice to say, submit CMAQ projects, please.
For our air quality containment and PM 2.5, has there been any change or analysis based on decommissioning the two coal-fired plants?
Mr. Mike Conger, do you have comments?
Well, we're maintaining, or we're attaining the current air quality standards. And part of that maintenance plan TDEC has to do to show that when the monitors show we're meeting the air quality standard, they do a maintenance plan that says, hey, we will meet the standard for the next 20 years. And part of that analysis looks at all the pollutant sources and decommissioning Bull Run first, that obviously helps and all that. So as part of that, and then like one of the previous meetings, I talked about how EPA's ratcheting down the standard, making it more stringent, and some areas in Tennessee are not meeting, including us. That new standard, we're just barely over. So we'll see. There's still another year of data to come to see where we land on that. Plus, there's that exceptional event they may try to petition from the wildfires last year. All the smoke that came in is one reason why we exceeded that. So it's kind of a hard pin down on exact sources, but all that should help us. But standards keep getting tighter as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Put your mic back on, Craig. Breaks down across what we rolled forward, and some of that portion is that traded funds with TDOT that we're going to have to work on obligating, but in fact, it is still LSTBG funding. The opening balance kind of carry over $70 million. You'll see what the TPO region gets in an annual allocation, and these are, again, recall, these are the federal dollar figures, not the inclusive of match. So roughly $14 million as you kind of average that out through the period projected. The rollover programming is where I'm looking at with what came in with the mobility plan and looking at some projections. That's kind of where I'm, a rough starting point of what I think we are looking at with rolling projects forward. So a bunch front-loaded in fiscal 26, progressively less as you get out. And that leaves us then kind of with that headspace available for whether there are additional cost overruns that we haven't quite captured yet, or potential new projects. Overall, we've got, $31 million in 26, $30 million, again, that number's kind of the same in 27, 41 million, 57 million, in the given years. Obviously, those would be impacted by any new items in the prior year. Funding contingency reserve. So this is the key thing to keep in mind. Balance at the end, $55.7 million right now. This is set up with the current contingency reserve figure of 9%. We would be then reserving $11.4 million. As we had talked about earlier, and I think everybody was comfortable with, I will, from now, I will revise this amount with the intention that we're going to do a contingency reserve of 10%. So add $1.2 million to that figure there and take it away from the available figure. So we're really looking at something like 43-ish available right now if we went to that program. And again, let's capture additional cost overruns that may be in there. But I do anticipate we'll be able to add some new projects this time, I hope. As Jim said, I hope we get some statewide partnership opportunities that may be able to give us a little bit of relief as we go into these time periods. And that's really all I have on that one. We'll get a chance to jump back on that, but let's just quick through. Same things that we see there, our initial balance, the allocations that you see in the given years. starting effort at looking at our rollover programming, kind of what we see moving forward that's already existing on the books with some inflation factors in there again, and that's rough at this point. And then those balances, $4.4 million on the back end for the TAP program, contingency reserve that you see there of a little over $1 million, and so available $3.3 million, pretty modest figure, but still enough that we can perhaps entertain some things. We would make a small adjustment to that with the contingency reserve as well, so it'll be slightly less available. Carbon reduction program, again, it's a very similar size program to TAP, so this looks very similar. Again, when you get on the back end, we would slightly adjust that contingency reserve and have available just a little over $3 million for those projects. No CMAQ table here right now, but that is a number that is, I want to say, just informally here, it is $5-ish million in a given year, no carryover, so it would be something like $20 million if we were able to have authority to program all of that through the time period, if we're just talking in, ballpark figures. And again, that could be adjusted as we get out to those future years, so we'll have to be cautious with that. Applications and scoring, we saw this slide earlier. Again, new projects, those that have not been rolled forward, will have it's a more extensive application form, although we have simplified that a little bit just based on the kind of GIS-based scoring rubric that came with the new mobility plan, which will be in effect, so we'll be following that scoring plan as it goes forward. It's based on the same goals and things, and that was adjusted just a little bit, but there isn't as much narrative description of that because this is very much a map-based scoring. Reminder, applications due at the end of next month. Let's see here. Just a little bit about CMAQ funding. I don't think I need to get into too many details about what you guys have a pretty good handle of what's going on with the CMAQ program, and just a reminder that we don't have program authority for those funds, but we want to be able to gather up the list of projects and then have a consultation with the TPOt Air Quality Office and hopefully be able to go ahead and start getting those programmed. Project cost estimates. This is a little bit of a change. So again, look at contingency factors and make sure that you include engineering, inspection, TDOT oversight costs on those construction estimates as you get out there. The big change that we're looking at, and I think this will be simpler for you folks, and certainly it reduces kind of communication and assumption errors on our end. For year of expenditure considerations, we're asking that everything be submitted in current year, fiscal 2025 dollars, regardless of what year you're asking it to be programmed in. That will allow us to come in then, and if you're submitting a construction figure, submit it in where you are now, but if construction is in 2026, we will then go in and apply the inflation factors out to the year that it is, and then we certainly can kind of reflect that back, because we get all sorts of stuff coming in, and I thought you might have a question on that, Brian, and it's always, okay, was it inflation?
We're adjusting numbers, really. I mean, there's a lot of Knoxville here to get something that you could call it $20-25.
Yeah.
Some of these tip numbers have been around for a few years already.
Yep, absolutely. So and I'm open, I'm certainly can have conversations with you about that if you have another number, but I guess I'm not asking that we make additional adjustments out to those future years, because when we do that, we always get just a hodgepodge of stuff back, and it's unclear what people are doing, and I think fewer variables is going to be better. TDOT has suggested the following inflation rates, and this is the other thing, is then we also have tiered inflation rates that we're going to use. So fiscal 26, we're going to apply 5.5%, 27, like a diminishing rate as we go out into the future, with the assumption that maybe the inflationary trends are starting to ease a little bit. So our proposal is that is what we'll be doing. Provide your costs in the current year to the best of your ability. We would then grow those to the year that they're appropriate in and present that information back as we work through the draft. I hope that isn't too stressful.
Well, no, I want to give you what you need or want or expect to see,
Yep.
to be consistent, to be accurate, and
Yep.
to be able to give back, across the board, everybody knows what we're talking about. For us, for example, for like our project for West Broadway, it's in the current tip, but it's just, we don't have construction in the current tip, but construction will find its way into the next tip. But that number for construction was developed through the last tip process.
Yep,
So a lot's happened in the last 3 years.
absolutely.
And goodness knows, I can't, it's a $6.5 million project with a $3 million construction price tag. I'm anxious to revisit what that construction estimate is now. And we'll do that with our consultant, even though we're still in NEPA. I think we're in a better place in 2025 to give a $2025 amount. I expect it not to be $3 million.
Absolutely.
Right?
And
You shouldn't expect it
you
to be
have hit
$3 million either.
Yep.
And if I just stick with that number going forward, when we do get to 27 or 28, when it's time to hopefully let it, or 29, we'll all be disappointed, right?
That is, you have hit on a very salient point.
Yeah.
Please do not take a old number from the prior tip, particularly if it wasn't developed maybe in perhaps the most robust fashion, and carry that forward with some inflation factor to 2025. I would very much appreciate if everyone would take a fresh, new look at where you stand and develop those cost estimates with, it isn't a final construction estimate. I understand that we're there, but with the appropriate amount of rigor for developing those as best we can. And we get, again, varying levels of quality sometimes.
Now
on
more than
those.
ever, you would appreciate an exercise with a consultant, even if it's a design consultant, to do an exercise where we produce our best shot at a construction estimate, even if it's preliminary.
If we had those for all of our projects,
Yeah.
I would be one happy camper.
Yeah, got it.
I know that we're probably not going to get that, but I would just, to the degree that, whatever degree you can, the amount of vigor that you can provide to those cost estimates is going to help us all out in the future. But again, what we're asking is submit your dollars in fiscal 2025. If you got the table there. Do not project that dollar out. Everything comes back in 25. We will, put it out to the appropriate year.
Talk about a little bit here too, just the paper trail, or taking out the slack in the process, working with local programs, because at some point, all of us through this process, when the time comes to obligate that next phase, we'll need to get our agreements and our contracts with TDOT up to date and change those values too.
Yes, we will.
Okay. They'll be expecting it.
They will. They have indicated that they are making some changes in the way they are approaching that. I have not seen those changes come out the other end yet. I cannot speak for TDOT local programs. I guess.
And I'm not asking you to. I know
Yeah.
we just went through a contract amendment for different reasons in the scope and with other aspects of the project. And at the time, it didn't make sense to me to even try to give them a new number for construction. It's not in the current tip, and it won't be in the current tip. Hopefully it will be in the next one, and I felt like that's the appropriate process and time to do that part then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we send these out, we'll send the most recent version of the TDOT project cost estimator, which, I'm not an engineer. I will not vouch for the accuracy of that, but if that's the best option that is available versus, having, like you said, your consultation with whether that's, another consulting firm or your own in-house efforts. How you guys want to develop that is up to you, and that's your professional realm, not mine. Again, on the project total cost should reflect previously obligated costs on both the rollover form and the new project. Well, new project form shouldn't have any previously obligated costs, but there is a place for that. Generally, that's going to be rollover projects only. We're asking that you do provide those in there. Let's see here. Is there anything on this relevant? I don't think there is, other than just kind of any questions follow up on us, and they'll be scored on kind of just those massage versions of the Mobility Plan 2050. Programming points of emphasis. Again, I'll just remind us that Schedules. Let's, particularly as we try to be more cognizant of that delayed project policy, getting the reasonable schedules makes a lot of sense, and putting a project delivery schedule that doesn't align with the reality of what's happening. Aspirational project scheduling doesn't help any of us. So don't program, design and right-of-way often, or right-of-way and construction in the same year. This does not pass the smell test.
7 years.
Yeah,
It's 7.
I've got 8 years on one.
Yeah, and that is my point. So I don't want intentionally pessimistic schedules, but there's a
7.
there's a line there, and yeah, you have some points. I would emphasize again there that cost estimates discussion, that those accurate cost estimates really are important. If we have when we talk, we're discussing inflation rates, the 3.5 or 4.5 in fiscal 27 to 28 is irrelevant if the cost estimate on the front end's off by 60%. So just a reminder that give due diligence to the cost estimates. And I think that consolidated programming is, if we want to do NEPA and design together, that's an option if you want to program that together. If that provides some more flexibility, right away in construction should certainly be programmed individually. I don't think we do too much of that in the past time, but just a reminder of that. I will pull up, y'all have copies of the form and rollover form. I can kind of grab that real quick. I've got here. So if we go.
We do?
Yep, I'll just pull that up and kind of.
Should have been handed out. Who does the
Yeah.
scoring, Craig? Is it TPO staff?
The scoring is out of, generally they're going to be, these are projects that are going to be from the mobility plan, so they
You did that in the
are
break, didn't you?
scored
Right.
already
You did that during
out
the
of
break.
plan. So it is the new plan, the new scoring is based on those, the kind of a massage version. We did a priority
Right.
tweaking exercise, and it is GIS-based that the consultant is going. I will be transparent in the sense that I don't have a good grasp of that, exactly what that looks like myself, to be able to explain it, but, and why is this not opening? Bear with me here a moment. It's asking me to verify application form, so. And I said, this should look fairly familiar. Let's see here, why is that not? Okay, I want to. Bear with me a moment. Escape does it? Okay, and then. Yes. And I'm seeing it, but it's not up there. Let's see here. All right. Why is this not? I apologize. Well, I've got a hard copy of the form, I guess, as I go. Let me walk through here. So. Rollover form.
Hold it up.
Y'all got the rollover form, so, pretty straightforward. I think if there are any questions as we go through here, you would just, we are asking, again, the TIP is supposed to link performance measures, so largely you're gonna be looking at, there's a fair bit of rollover. You could look back at the one that you had before, should be some relevance, and fairly straightforward with those. Again, listing the year of obligation. I will say, I do have those in the budget worksheet. I have those set up to total those figures for you now. I am working on one bug in the system that doesn't allow the total of totals to sum correctly. It does not want to cooperate, so I may just, the right bottommost cell may be a do your own math, because the sum of sums does not want to cooperate with me right now. So, but otherwise, your totals should, the total line, both horizontally and vertically, will tabulate for you. Again, that cost estimate, total project cost estimate. We are asking that you go ahead and select the funding source that you're looking at. I have added carbon reduction and PM 2.5 figures there. And a reminder of that scheduling is being very important on the backside. And are there any questions about the form? Like I said, it should look fairly familiar to you. And my intention when I submit this out, I'll send out the overall project call with the base forms, and then I will individually submit to each of you your project tracking spreadsheet as it is right now, with projects that we know are going to not carry forward. I'm going to go ahead and pull those out, or that have already recently moved forward. We'll pull those out, and then I'll send you also your current tip pages for each of the projects. So those will be 2 additional items that will go out to each of you that should help you quite a bit on your rollover forms. New project application form, a little more narrative discussion that's there, but also quite a bit of similarities that you'll see. And then we did reduce on the a little bit of the narrative description and the scoring stuff, because the new scoring stuff is pretty automated from GIS, so there's less interpretation that we're doing there. So that reduces that application a little bit. Yeah. Well, thank you. Y'all don't have very many questions today. Brian has questions.
Dude, I got you. I got this. As always, when you look for the year, you want the federal fiscal year. So often we're trying to translate what our local matches and our local capital budgets needs to be in agreement with this, but you're looking for October 1 through September
Yes.
of a year. So we kind of have to take those timelines and adapt them to our either calendar year or our own July 1 to June 30 fiscal year for
Correct.
local. So,
And that is I can put a reminder of that
well,
time period on there. I don't think that's
year, we just use 2027, but there's 4 different things going on there when you say 2027.
so the TIP is programming federal obligations. So the TIP operates on federal fiscal year
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
I do know that, that's different for everybody. But that's worth actually making a tweak to this form to
Yeah.
put a reminder in there
Well,
that
it's-
we're,
Like
in
you
the-
started the conversation earlier, we just obligated construction dollars for Carpenter's grade, but we didn't get concurrence from TDOT until November. So we missed the previous fiscal year. They didn't obligate through October or through September. So you'll see it on the next one because we didn't get obligated until November. Right? Just for example, in other words, we were in that process, but you closed books on fiscal 24, yeah, on September 30.
you sure about that?
Well,
Is that one of the one that I cited there?
that's what I'm asking. Like until, you don't count them obligated until,
Obligation is when the federal obligation occurs.
yeah.
Carpenter's grade was in fiscal
Was it?
24. It's in the
Okay.
report that way.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, that's what came back to me.
And I
The
guess
date
that's
is-
this distinction I'm trying to make sure
Yeah,
that you make. It matters when it's done.
correct.
Okay.
And sometimes you do end up in that window, but my understanding, based on the spreadsheet that was provided to me, is that it did fall
Okay.
it must have snuck in there
That's
right
good.
at the end.
Right at the end, that's great.
Yeah. That's really kind of all I have for y'all folks, although I'm certainly welcome to entertain any questions. I thought I guess I would emphasize any clarity if there's any more questions about that, the way we're going to do inflation factors this time. And if there's not, all good. And if you have any questions about anything when it comes out, feel free to reach out, so.
Were the budget numbers that you got for the mobility plan projects just grossly enormous because we grew those out to the year that they would hit. And I noticed when we got our sheets and our lists back, you'd brought them back to present dollars. Like if we had horizon year projects in 2040 and 2045, they were just awful.
Yep.
But we got them handed back in terms of present dollars, just for comparison, I guess.
They would have come back when we moved things around. When we had dollar figures come out.
Yeah.
I adjusted things from where we were. To the best of our ability, we made them $2024 and then inflated them to the midpoint of whatever horizon year they landed in.
If they changed horizon year, you changed the dollars to go with it based on
Correct.
the move up or down.
They did not stay with where, yes.
Okay.
So we have a dynamic spreadsheet with a formula field. So if you change that horizon year, it automatically calculates the new horizon,
Okay.
and then that goes in the pivot table, and it's all linked together so we can
Yeah, you said pivot table and my head just went.
Test.
It's all, yeah. So
test scenario.
Mike has like one of those maps on the back wall. There's red string all over his office.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crazy. You know, you have a project. I was going to put that in my slideshow. Like a present dollar, $20 million project becomes a $50 million project in
It's striking.
2050 horizon. So
Yes,
it's a
it
shell.
does.
When we move these projects around, we're not always helping ourselves
Right.
by pushing it back. You know, you get more revenues, but then the cost balloon. So
Yeah, and there's a differential with this cycle right now with just where we are. Revenue grows slower than cost, so the gap gets bigger with something the further it goes out.
And I appreciate you taking the time to kind of explain that process because that did help me understand that. That does put a spotlight on the need to immediately hammer down the mobility plan projects where some of these go, especially if they're in a nearer term, right? 30 or 35, because those are the ones we got to get. Even if it's 35, you could still start work in 29, which would be part of the 26 to 29 tip.
Yeah,
yeah. That I
if
mean,
it's 35, you better start working before 29,
we didn't.
right?
See, it was 7
You're a
years,
year
right?
late. You're a year late.
There's probably rare exceptions. I mean, we didn't put any projects in 2030 that aren't already started now because
Sure, right. No,
Horizon
there's
needs
there's
it.
not enough time. You're right.
yeah.
I'm thinking 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, folks. If you don't have any further questions, we'll work on kind of tweaking that form and testing it to make sure nothing acts goofy. Sometimes the table acts a little weird, so Adobe's not the best feature for that. We made it before 11, so if there are no further questions,